For almost 40 years, drivers on Route 16 in West Virginia passed a billboard with 5 children's faces on it. It asked one question: what was their fate? Kidnapped, murdered, or are they still alive? The woman who put it up wore black every day for the rest of her life. She believed her children did not die in the fire that destroyed her home on Christmas morning, 1945. And here is the uncomfortable part: the evidence never quite managed to prove her wrong. This is the darkest docket. Docket number 1, the Sodder children. Fayetteville, West Virginia, December 1945. The war is 4 months over, and the coal towns of the New River Gorge are having their first peacetime Christmas in 5 years. On a hillside 2 miles outside town stands the home of George and Jennie Sodder and 9 of their 10 children. George was born Giorgio Sodder in Sardinia. He came through Ellis Island at 13, alone, and built a coal trucking business out of nothing. He is respected. He is also loud, especially about the dictator his homeland had just been freed from. George despised Mussolini, and in Fayetteville's Italian community, which still held sympathizers, he said so. Often. In October, 2 months before the fire, a man came to the house selling life insurance. George turned him down. The salesman's reply was recorded in the case file, and it is worth hearing in full.
Your goddamn house is going up in smoke, and your children are going to be destroyed. You are going to be paid for the dirty remarks you have been making about Mussolini.
A threat that specific should have made him famous within a week of the fire. Hold that thought, because we know more about this man now than the newspapers did then. We'll come back to him. The threat wasn't the only warning. That autumn, a stranger asking about hauling work wandered behind the house, pointed at the fuse boxes and said, "This is going to cause a fire someday." The wiring had just been inspected and passed by the power company. And in the weeks before Christmas, the older Sodder boys noticed a car parked on the highway. A man inside, watching the younger children walk home from school. Christmas Eve, Marion, 19, has bought her little brothers and sisters toys from the dime store where she works, and 5 of them beg to stay up and play. Maurice, 14, Martha, 12, Louis, 9, Jenny Irene, 8, Betty, 5. Their mother says yes. midnight, the phone rings. Jenny answers. A woman's voice she doesn't recognize asks for a name she doesn't know. There's laughter in the background. Glasses. The caller hangs up. Police would later find the woman and rule her out. A genuine wrong number, they concluded. On her way back to bed, Jenny notices the downstairs lights still on. The curtains open, the front door unlocked. At 1 o'clock, she hears something hit the roof. Her words,
"It sounded like a rubber ball. It rolled and hit the ground with a thump."
She falls back asleep. At 1:30, she wakes to smoke. Fire is burning around George's office, around the telephone line, and the fuse box. George, Jenny, Marion, John, George Jr., and 3-year-old Sylvia get out. The staircase to the children's rooms is already burning, and now in the space of minutes, George Sodder's luck fails in ways that are hard to call luck. He breaks a window to go back in and slices his arm open. The ladder that always leans against the house is gone. It will be found later, thrown down an embankment 75 feet away. He runs to his coal trucks, planning to drive one under the upstairs windows and climb. Neither truck starts. Both ran the day before. He tries to scoop water from the rain barrel. It is frozen solid. Marion runs to a neighbor's to phone the fire department. No operator answers. A neighbor calls from a tavern. No operator answers. The house, a 2-story frame house, burns to its basement in about 45 minutes. The fire department is 2.5 miles away. It arrives at 8 o'clock in the morning, 6.5 hours after the fire began. That delay sounds sinister. The documented truth is almost sadder. A wartime volunteer department with no working alarm system. The chief ran a phone tree by hand. And by several accounts, Chief F.J. Morris could not drive the fire truck himself. He had to wait for a man who could. This is rural West Virginia in 1945. Remember that before you reach for conspiracy. Then look at what the ashes held, or rather, what they didn't. A brief search of the basement finds household appliances, identifiable in the rubble. It finds no bodies, no bones, 5 children, nothing. Chief Morris suggests the fire burned hot enough to cremate them completely. 2 days after Christmas, a coroner's inquest rules the fire accidental. Faulty wiring in the house where the Christmas lights burned brightly on live current while it happened. Death certificates are issued before New Year's. Fire or suffocation. And on the coroner's jury that ruled it, an accident sat a familiar face. The man who, 2 months earlier, had promised George his house would go up in smoke and his children would be destroyed. George, drowning in grief and expecting nothing more from the authorities, bulldozed 5 feet of earth over the basement to make a memorial garden for his children. He didn't know it yet, but he had just buried the only crime scene. Then the details started coming back wrong. A repairman found the phone line hadn't burned. It had been cut by someone who climbed 14 feet up the pole. A man seen at the property that night was arrested. He admitted cutting the line, claiming he thought it was a power line, and admitted stealing a block and tackle. Lifting tackle, the kind used to pull engines. The trucks that wouldn't start were never examined. He was charged with theft and released. His name does not survive in the available records. A crematorium employee told Jennie that bones survived 2 hours at 2,000 degrees. Her house burned in 45 minutes. She tested it herself, burning animal bones in her stove over and over. They always remained. Then came the tip about Chief Morris, that he'd quietly buried a box of remains in the ashes. When private investigators C.C. Tinsley and George dug it up, it held fresh beef liver, untouched by fire. Locals said Morris admitted planting it, so the family would find something and stop digging. In August 1949, the Sodders hired a Washington, D.C. pathologist and excavated the entire basement, with the state fire marshal watching. The dig produced 4 human vertebrae. The Smithsonian Institution examined them. They belonged to one individual, aged about 16 or 17, older than any of the missing children, and they showed no evidence of fire. Most likely, the report said, they arrived in the fill dirt. The Smithsonian found it very strange that no other bones were found. 4 vertebrae, 5 children, a house fire that spared the appliances. Those vertebrae, the only physical evidence ever recovered, were later lost. Whatever DNA testing could have told us, it never will. The state legislature held 2 hearings in 1950. Here's a detail that almost never gets told. In 1948 and again in 1950, the Charleston Gazette reported that prosecutors expected conspiracy arrests in what the paper called a grudge murder. Arrests were anticipated. Arrests never came. No explanation was ever printed. The governor told the family the case was hopeless and closed it. J. Edgar Hoover personally signed the FBI's refusal.
Although I would like to be of service, the matter related appears to be of local character and does not come within the investigative jurisdiction of this bureau.
Local matter, local jurisdiction. The FBI offered to help if Fayetteville authorities requested it. They declined. So the Sodders did it themselves. In 1952, they raised the billboard on Route 16, and a second one on Route 60 near Ansted that history mostly forgot. $10,000 reward. George chased every lead in person, a convent in St. Louis, a bar story in Texas, a schoolgirl in Manhattan he was sure was Betty. Her parents wouldn't let him near her. Witnesses surfaced. A woman who swore she saw the children watching their own house burn from a passing car. A tourist stop operator 50 miles west who said she served 5 children breakfast Christmas morning and remembered a car with Florida plates. A Charleston hotel clerk who said 4 of them came in a week later, with Italian-speaking adults who cut her off when she approached. None of it was ever corroborated. All of it came from people with nothing obvious to gain. Then in 1967 or 68, the record splits, an envelope arrived, postmarked Central City, Kentucky. No return address. Inside, a photograph of a man in his mid-20s. Dark curls, the same eyes, the same tilt of the left eyebrow, his mother thought. On the back, someone had written, Louis Sodder. I love brother Frankie, Elil boys, A90132 or 35. No one has ever decoded the rest. The Sodders hired a private detective and sent him to Kentucky. He was never heard from again. Not a report, not a refund, nothing. They added the photograph to the billboard. George died in 1969, still saying the search had hit a rock wall. Jennie wore black until her death in 1989. The billboard came down that year. Sylvia, the 3-year-old carried out of the house, became the last living witness. She died in 2021 at 79. She went to her grave believing her brothers and sisters had survived. 3 theories. The docket weighs each. Theory 1. They died in the fire. It is the simplest. The only staircase was burning. The debris smoldered all night. The search lasted 2 hours, and George's own bulldozer sealed the site. Serious researchers, including West Virginia crime historian George Bragg, land here. Against it, 45 minutes of fire, intact appliances, a professional excavation that found almost nothing, and bone that should have survived. Theory 2, revenge, the named threat over Mussolini. And here is where the modern record sharpens the old story. In 2023, researcher Bob Lane Bragg identified the insurance salesman by name as Florenzo Giannutolo, a prominent Fayetteville businessman, George's associate, the co-signer on the Sodder mortgage, and a beneficiary on the home's insurance coverage he had raised without the family's consent shortly before the fire. The man on the coroner's jury, against the theory, no arrest ever came. And as George himself asked, if someone wanted him, why take his family? Theory 3, the children were taken. The cased house, the cut line, the moved ladder, the dead trucks, the unlocked door, the sightings, the photograph. Against it. Moving 5 children, ages 5 to 14, silently out of a small house minutes before it burned, while 6 people escaped, and keeping all 5 hidden for the rest of their lives. 80 years, and not one of them ever verifiably surfaced. There is one live thread. Sylvia's DNA is on file with the West Virginia State Police, and a woman recently contacted researcher Bob Lane Bragg, suspecting her late mother may have been one of the missing Sodder girls. As of this recording, that comparison is pending. Docket number 1. 5 children went to bed on Christmas Eve, 1945. The fire that should have left their bones left nothing at all. So the question on the billboard stands. 80 years on, and we leave it to you. What does a fire that consumes 5 children but spares the kitchen appliances actually look like? The darkest docket stays open. Sources for every claim in this episode are in the description. If you were in Fayette County, ask your grandparents what they remember. New dockets weekly.